about to see a real change. And we're getting a lot of attention on it right now. So let's just kind of look at some of the things in the area. We have our Gregory Chinese pipe plant that's coming. We have our Italian plant that's coming. We have an Austrian plant that's coming. We have Schlitterbahn in development. We have the port activity on the rise. You have the opening in the Panama region. You also have the Eagleford Shale region impacting our entire coastal zone. Now, that's great. It's an interesting time, but it also makes us want to be able to accept all of this. And the best way is through a developed workforce, education and workforce together. Now, some interesting information. Apparently, 5,400 jobs in the last year was added to the region. I just wish I'd had that when we went through the redistricting process. There's apparently plans for more on what I've talked about, but a general number. You know, billion in new industrial construction. We have analysis in the area that suggests the region may need over 10,000 skilled construction workers by 2015. That's right around the corner. In addition, look, it's great. Our area has one of the hottest economies going. I tell folks that in the last 2.5, 3 weeks, I've been getting calls about out-of-state companies moving here. And they say, we have 3 places. Lucy and Susie, they have Dallas. Jane, they have Houston. And Claudia and Maria, they have Corpus Christi. Now that is a change, Mike. The first time I've seen us hit those numbers and hit the lists. And we have people here from Aransas County, San Patricio County, Nueces County, Clayburgh County, Victoria County in the room right now. And if you take the surrounding counties with them, this whole coastal Bend region is just on fire. And it's going to get even more, and the economy impact is going to be strong. Now, what that means, we need to do the right thing in education. We need to keep our jobs here. We need to promote people staying here, not leaving the state. And I'm glad to be biased and prejudiced and say I want them right in the coastal bend. It's time we get a positive focus. So the point of the workforce and education is we made some accomplishments. This community, this area, this region made the foundation for getting things done in Austin, Texas. So I want you to know this briefing is positive. This briefing is going forward. And so what I'm going to do is ask the chairwoman of the task force of workforce education, Carol Scott, to make comments, and then she's going to have some briefings given by some of our folks. I will end with some conclusion comments on where we're going to go from here. But I want you all to be proud. I will tell you, the folks in this room care. The folks in this room help us ignite. And I want to tell you this, I have 3 children. And when I see 2 come back, we're doing the right thing. We're bringing them back home. And that's what we want to do. Now what we want to do is make sure we have the right workforce and we're able to keep the workforce and we can make the demands and we don't lose our own people. So I want to thank you all for helping us ignite this. So at this time I'm going to turn it over to the chairwoman of the Education Workforce Task Force, Carol Scott.
Thank you, Chairman Leonard. two of the biggest opportunities, challenges that we have before us as a region are related to water and workforce. And Chairman Hunter is taking a leadership role in both of those efforts, and we can't thank him enough as an education community, both public ed and higher ed, for what he's doing to keep the focus on the efforts for workforce and for public ed and higher ed training. I'd like to recognize members of the task force that are here. If you're a member of the Education Workforce Task Force set up by Chairman Hunter, would you wave your hand so we can see folks that are there? Thank you very much, and thank you to Mike Briondis, who is the vice chair with me. Just as a way of context, I'm going to give a few opening comments, and then I have a series of questions for our panelists. Don't worry, I'm not going to surprise you. It's nothing tough. It's things that you do every day in your job. But I do want to give a little context of where we are. When most of us, I look around the room, and most of us are a similar age, maybe with the exception of a reporter or two, and maybe Dan in the back. Most of us are of a similar age in which we went to public education or private school, as the case may be, in an economy that was dominated by agriculture, mechanical industrialization in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And we realized at that point in time, for us, career and technical training meant industrial arts, or shop, or automotive work. We all remember those classes. And we remember that higher education, in whatever shape or form, was not as important for long-term career goals. My dad went to a semester of college and then worked in Celanese for the rest of his life. And so I'm the proud product of a guy who worked with his hands for 30 years and provided for his family. So that wasn't a big deal. And even not getting a high school diploma was not the sentence that it is today for in terms of career achievement. There were all kinds of workforce opportunities and military opportunities. So there were lots of opportunities for folks to earn a good wage. And we know that over the last 30 or 40 years that has changed dramatically. As Chairman Hunter said a few minutes ago, what we're going to see in the next 10 years in the Coastal Bend region is going to be a shift change for us. After years of working on infrastructure and working to recruit companies like Cheniere Energy and Vestalpina and M&G and others that are coming, and TPCO, we know that they're coming and that the opportunities are here in front of us. So the opportunities for jobs for our graduates, high school, career and trade graduates, community college, higher education, and our state and private institutions are going to be there, and we're going to be able to see those opportunities for our kids and our grandkids. So I want to thank the coalition that came together statewide. Everybody from Mothers Against Drug Testing to the Texas Association of School Administrators, the Texas Association of School Boards, the Texas Association of Manufacturers, the Associated Builders and Contractors of Texas, group after group after group came together statewide to really push reforms that are in House Bill 5. And those reforms have laid the groundwork for public education to help provide some better career opportunities for our students in the future. And so as we look today at what does House Bill 5 mean to us, kind of where we are today, think about, for those of you on the panel that are in the public ed side of it, what does that mean for us in the next 6 to 12 months? And then we're also going to talk about where should we be, where could we be in another couple of years, and what are obstacles to get there. One of those things that we see is that we're going to have some issues on how to get our kids transition from public ed into any one of the opportunities they have, whether it's a doctoral program, doing basic research in some brilliant subject that we don't even know about yet, or whether it's learning a skilled trade that's going to help them get a job tomorrow. We want to be able to help our students and make sure that they have choices across that entire spectrum. So I'm going to introduce to you our panel. Many of the faces you have seen in this discussion time and time again. The newest member of our community in this area is Dr. Rick Alvarado, who is the director of the Education Service Center here for about a year now, 2 years.
Less than a year.
Less than a year now. I was thinking that you're pretty new. The great news about Dr. Alvarado is he is a graduate of Texas A&I Kingsville, bachelor's and master's from A&I, and he received his PhD from Texas A&M College Station, so he's got it covered. He actually spent a long time at the Education Service Center community, and then for a few years has been at the San Antonio for a few years, about 20 years, was at the San Antonio Independent School District as well. Dr. Ann Matula is the president of the Craft Training Center and is a fabulous leader of that organization. We have watched it grow under her tutelage, and it is now one of the premier programs across the state. It is a program started by the Associated Builders and Contractors locally, and they have grown that program into one of the best career nonprofit craft training centers in I think the nation. Dr. Scott Elliff is our superintendent of schools at Corpus Christi ISD. He's my boss, as the joke goes. He has been with the school district off and on for a couple of decades, but most recently as our superintendent for about 8 years now, and has done a fabulous job for us. And then finally, Dr. Mark Escamilla, who is a Del Mar College graduate and came back to lead Del Mar College as its president in 2008. He has done fabulous things with his board and his executive team at Del Mar College, and has been a fabulous partner for all of the school districts across this region. So with that introduction, I would like to give each of you an opportunity to talk a little bit about where we are today. And I'm going to go a little bit out of order. I'm going to go Scott, and then Rick, and then Ann, and then Mark, just to kind of go back and forth, because I kind of want to get the perspective of where you think we are today, and what you think the opportunities are for us as we are today. Dr. Elliff?
Thank you. All right. There's a green light. That must mean something. It's a pleasure to be up here representing our district and representing the perspectives of people working in public education. I have to admit, I'm a little nervous if I look to this part of the room and I see 5 of my superintendent colleagues sitting right in a row, ready to give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down. So if I don't make eye contact, don't participate. So, Carol, when you ask where we are now, I'm assuming you mean kind of in post-House Bill 5 land. I used this analogy the other day at the Texas ASCD conference that's been meeting here. The supervisors and curriculum developers have been meeting here for the last few days. Before House Bill 5, I think the situation we were in the state of Texas as public educators would be the situation that I know Todd will like as a Starbucks connoisseur. If you went into Starbucks and you were in a long line with people who were each wanting to order all of their individual coffee drinks, you know, Lucy might want a caramel macchiato, and Debbie might want a frappuccino, and Artie might just want straight up black coffee. Well, when you walk into Starbucks now, you see all the machinery that's available and people who are well trained to provide that sort of customized experience. Before House Bill 5, it was sort of like walking into a Starbucks and seeing a whole row of Mr. Coffees and a few cartons of half and half, and then trying to create that customized experience for everybody in a setup that was designed to make just a cup of coffee for every customer that came through the door. And that was a real problem for us. In a world where industry was telling us that they needed certain things in terms of workforce development, and in a world where the requirements of public educators to meet the needs of every single individual student, those requirements were laid out for us to meet. The Service Center brought a woman here this summer to do some training for all of us named Dr. Victoria Bernhardt. One of the comments she made when she was here was that our schools are perfectly designed to get the results that we are getting right now. And the truth is, they're perfectly designed for a world that the end game was supposed to be a few people graduating and going to college, many others graduating from high school and going right to work, and others dropping out of high school and going right to work. That is still, to a great extent, the structure that we had before the opportunities that House Bill 5 presents to us. And so now, with that legislation passed, we have the opportunity to meet not only more individual needs of students, but we have the opportunity to meet the needs of a very diverse state. Because what we need in Corpus Christi is not the same thing that is needed in Lubbock, or that is needed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or even in the Valley. So we have the opportunity and the flexibility now with the endorsements, with the relief from some of the testing madness that we had prior to House Bill 5, to provide that customized experience. There's some challenges for us moving forward. I don't know if that's another question coming. All right, so we have great opportunity if we are able to seize it. And I think there are some challenges ahead that we need to be mindful of and that we need to overcome in order for us to maximize that opportunity. But that's where I think we are now in post House Bill 5 adoption land.
Dr. Alvarado, so can you let us know, from the Education Service Center perspective, a little bit about how this shift from the public education side especially will impact the Education Service Center statewide?
It's a great question. We have, I ditto everything Scott said, because we have some wonderful opportunities. Because I think we used to educate kids with the focus of they all have to go to college. And we realized that perhaps that's not wasn't true for everyone. So I think as a service center, it's an opportunity for the opportunity for us as service centers is to work collaboratively with our school districts to provide information to our State Board of Education members as they begin to make implementation of rules about what it is that House Bill 5 and the impact it will have on school districts. So we've had several meetings with our school districts to get information about what is it that they need so that we can give that information to our State Board of Education member. I think the other opportunity is, as Scott said, is the flexibility. Allowing for that flexibility to be able, for districts to be able to educate the students in their districts in a way that meets the needs of those students. So I think we really have to focus on not educating kids to go to college, all of them, but to be able to prepare them for a skilled and to have a skilled and educated workforce. And I think if we have a skilled and educated workforce, people can make the choices that they are going to be good for them. So I think our role is to help school districts work through all the processes to help them to do that, because we have a lot of rural districts in Region 2, and they don't have all the resources that perhaps other districts may have. So I think it's how do we leverage all of those resources so that all of the kids in the Coastal Bend area in Region 2 benefit from House Bill 5.
Great, thank you. We'll come back and talk about some specifics in just a second. Dr. Matula, so Craft Training Center has been out there working for years on these areas. And give us a sense of how you think House Bill 5 has shifted your work and specifically around what you're doing with the high school age students.
We currently have about 250 high school students who come to us every day from 15 school districts. The most students we have are from CCISD. We have students who come from as far away as Mathis. In addition to those students, we work with a number of area school districts to provide the same kind of training at their campuses with their teachers. Aransas County ISD, Ingleside ISD, which host other school districts coming to their site. Port Aransas, we work with Brooks County. And all of those feed into an accreditation through the National Center for Construction, Education, and Research. What we see from our high school students, a little bit about pre-House Bill 5, is a very strong concern from our high school students that if they were juniors, they might not be able to continue with us during their senior year, because we are preparing them for a skilled craft career immediately after high school. That model is one model. We know that many students graduate from high school and go on to the community college or to our regional or our flagship institutions. But we have many students who, upon graduating from high school, say, I just need some training to get myself into the workforce. I want accredited training and so on. We do see from these students who come to us every day a sense of relief now. We have many that say to us, if I weren't coming to the Craft Training Center, I would have dropped out from school because there was nothing in that 4x4 program that was preparing me for what I want to do. I think a very important point that we have to understand here, and as we look at what some of the barriers may be, is that these skilled crafts are not secondary types of careers. They're not second class. They must have a background in math, a background in science, because the skilled craft workers, are working under the engineers in all of these jobs, and they are applying the math and the science every day. We have a program that we bring in middle schoolers in the summer through a grant from the Edward Shell Foundation. And we keep them for 2 weeks and we show them what these skills are in these crafts. And we relate it to what they're learning in school about math and science. So where are we now in House Bill 5? I think it gives a great deal of hope for those students who do not want a career that requires a college education, but they do need accredited training. And also we have a great opportunity here to help school districts develop courses, not just CTE, but as they re-examine or look at additional opportunities for courses in math and science that are better tailored for the real world type of work that many of these skilled craft workers do. We are proud. We've been in existence for 26 years. And let me just say this. We were created 26 years ago because the local plant owners and contractors were very worried about where would they get their workers when the baby boomers retired. So they were already in a here comes a crisis mode before we have all this great new economic development. So we're very optimistic, and we think that we are helping many students who want to move into this area. If they miss the opportunity in high school, we do have adult classes in the evening. But we see it as a very positive move.
Thank you, Dr. Matula. So while you're passing the microphone down, I'm going to recognize that Dr. Escamilla has a foot in both camps. He is not only responsible for a number of students who come in for a career in technical education and training and in associate's degrees in applied technology, but you're also dealing with students who are wanting to get healthcare, culinary, as well as college preparatory associate's degrees to go on to four-year institutions. And so you have probably the broadest spectrum of students coming to you for all kinds of resources, and I realize you're not an expert on House Bill 5, it will impact what you do, but give us a sense of kind of where you think that we are today in that continuum between public ed and higher ed.
Certainly. I always brag about the curriculum being a wide net because of the comprehensiveness that you're talking about. And it's both, well, it's a blessing, let's just leave it at that. Because we do get to juggle all things from those students looking for a GED certificate to the preparation for medical doctors, welders in between, and everything else in between, actually. Currently, as a result of HB5, I've been keeping close tabs, obviously working very closely with the superintendents and faculty and staff members around the area to see HB5 roll out. And in preparation for that, in anticipation of that, and frankly as a part of our regular mission, we've been doing everything that we can at the college to expand our capabilities and given the laws that we had then, and obviously given the laws that we have now, to maximize the students' efforts and opportunities in the technical areas. Now we know the opportunities will be there for them on a greater basis in the high school years. And there's our opportunity to expand into the high schools, into the school districts with opportunities such as dual credit and so forth. That is our greatest single opportunity, I think, so that we are working with students at a younger and younger age by way of direct recruitment and looking to enroll those students in our classes And then also what we're doing at the college is using that opportunity to redirect our outreach efforts to get to them at younger and younger ages. See a lot of heads nodding right now. That's exactly what we're trying to do right now. So the opportunity is I'm proud to say we're headed in that direction. HB5 has opened up those opportunities. Generally speaking, what makes us strong as your community college, one of your community colleges in this area, is that we remain affordable, that we stay there, that we remain at a third or less the price of a local university, and certainly the flagship. That another very important thing, and this is something, Todd, that you've talked about, and we've talked about many, many times, that's so important, it's such a strength and an opportunity for us, whether we're talking about a student preparing for a welding certificate or that engineering student getting ready to transfer over to the university. And that is 90+% of our graduates in Del Mar College stay here. They stay home. And we're talking about a lot, and so when we're talking about our engineering students at our universities who get the degrees and move on, and we have the first 2 years of that engineering, much of that first 2 years of that engineering program, there's a wonderful opportunity to do what? Grow local engineers. We have some natural things in place. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to kind of put out there as an opportunity. Of course, we're talking about over 1,700 graduates with certificates and degrees each year. There's just a little bit of that. So we remain close to our mission as a close, affordable, accessible institution of higher ed with many, many options that we've described. And again, dual credit, I think, is one of our, I'm going to say one of our silver bullets as we move forward. This past semester, we've enrolled 1,400, a little over 1,450 dual credit students, enrolling in over 2,800 courses. That number is up, and let me tell you what, our plan is to double that, okay? We're working, we're shifting and changing policy, making policy adjustments for approval to go to the board here in a couple of months, and doing everything we can to make it even more affordable and even more accessible so that this HB5 window of opportunity, hopefully it's a permanent window, hopefully it expands so that we can maximize our students' opportunities at the college and certainly during their high school years.
I'm going to ask you to keep the microphone just
Sure.
so we don't have to juggle too much.
Certainly.
You were, so given these new opportunities, what do you think are the biggest challenges to doubling dual credit? What do you think are challenges to your continued growth as a community college serving this region?
It's awareness at an earlier age. It's working together to inform the families at an earlier age that dual credit even exists. Okay, we start there. Operationally, I expect competition and all of these sorts of things from other providers and or other opportunities for college credit, AP being one, and other institutions. Someone asked me the other day, how many competitors do you think we have here in the city? I said hundreds. Hundreds. And I was sitting there saying, wait a minute, there's only, no, online opportunities, I mean, it's pervasive. The opportunities for our students to advance their learning is greater than we could ever imagine. Okay, all that being said, as we prepare and prepare to try to double these numbers and increase the overall educational attainment level of this region, we're going to have to work together. We're going to have to understand, and I'm a big supporter of AP, especially when those students take that test and get it through and get that credit. I have family members that I'm supporting in that area. That with our universities, that we have closer ties. At the Lawrence, we talked about just the other day, we have closer ties to enable students to go on their natural track, to take their natural courses, a sequence of courses to whatever institution that they want, but that we have it in writing and that we have those things more firmly in place to establish those opportunities. And then just generally, working closely with certainly counselors and faculty members all throughout the high schools to understand strengths and weaknesses, and opportunities, and so forth, and help them to increase their educational level, their own opportunities to gain master's degrees and so forth, to enter the accredited level of credentials for instruction and so forth. So it's basically taking, it's going to be many, many layers, but at the end of the day, it's going to just take, it's very simple. It's many, many conversations with, more importantly, action put in place to open up those opportunities at every one of our high schools. And we all have the same goal in mind at the end of the day.
Thank you. Scott, you were chomping at the bit to talk about some challenges when you were speaking earlier, so I'm going to give you your shot.
Okay, so House Bill 5 gives us really great opportunities to meet the needs of our local workforce through these 5 endorsements that we have, 5 pathways to graduation. That is a great opportunity. And I think we have 3 areas we need to be careful of in public ed. These are the 3 ways I think we can foul that up. Implementation, expectations, and differentiation. On the implementation side, if the State Board of Education adopts rules that are too stringent to remove all the flexibility that House Bill 5 gets us, then we've still got a Starbucks full of Mr. Coffees. And I think there is a risk that that can happen. Implementation, we can foul that up if school districts, industry, and higher education are not in the types of conversations that Dr. Escamilla was talking about, starting now. School districts can foul that up if they're not in really good conversation with each other, and I think this is a place the Service Center can help us, Rick, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but you know, we have industry coming now. You talked about all these jobs that are coming to our area. They're coming to us now and asking for us to create specific courses of study. And if each individual school district tries to do that on their own, that's like each school district creating world peace on its own. And so this is the time, I believe, for the school districts in this area to be getting together and saying, look, there's a long, and the craft training centers, there's a long range, there's a long-term goal we need to get to. But right now, if we want to start implementing some of this stuff quickly, we need to be assessing what infrastructure do we already have in place. I have classrooms, Paul has classrooms, Artie, Troy, Joey, I forgot your name over there, Mr. Flowerbluff. Joe and Joey, that's why I got messed up. We all have classrooms. We have equipment. We have teachers. Are they being maximized? Can we be sharing those resources? I think that's the only way we're going to get to being able to do some stuff very quickly. And that means we're going to have to think about different ways of working together. So we can foul this up through implementation. We can foul this up with expectations. If we're not able to get folks to understand that a career and technical education is not a low expectation route, I think that can be a problem for us. This is not your grandmother's vocational education program that we're talking about. We're talking about a very rigorous quality of education that earns students industry standard certifications and college credit. So it's not the type of voc ed program that we had when I was in high school. And if we don't manage those expectations, I think we're going to fall into the trap of, and I think it can be bad for everybody all around, of saying that certain types of courses are for some kids and other kinds of courses are for others, and this is the A track and this is the B track. The last thing doesn't have anything to do with House Bill 5, but I think it can relate to it. And I think a way that we can foul up the opportunity for to create this great program that meets students' individual needs and the individual needs of industry is by recognizing, this goes back to schools are designed to get exactly the results they're getting now. And for those of you who are not in education, I think there are a few here, I really hope you hear this. If we think that the way to get any kind of results for students today is to park a teacher in the front of a classroom pass out 30 textbooks, and have the teacher dispense information all at one time to those 30 students, the way that we did, we will get the results we got before. A few students will go to college, some students will graduate from high school and go to work, and many more will drop out. The difference is they will not go to work. So the highest leverage thing we can do, please listen to me, is capitalize on the ability of technology to be the greatest tool that teachers can use to differentiate instruction. I'm not talking about a teacher passing out 30 iPads and having the students all look at the same site. I'm talking about the teacher knowing how to use technology from pre-kindergarten all the way through the time they get to high school to differentiate that instruction to meet their needs. If we don't capitalize on that, we're going to get the same results we've always got. So implementation, expectations, and differentiation through technology.
Thank you. Dr. Matula,
Yes.
what are some of the challenges and obstacles from your perspective?
Well, the challenges and obstacles from my perspective are also very similar to those from the public school sector. Just at lunch, we were talking, and there is not only a workforce crisis for industry, but we see a workforce crisis in many fields, including education. We know of people who are leaving whatever their current jobs are and going to work for industry, going to work for Eagleford Shale. So one of the greatest challenges that I see for public schools as they implement this is the same sort of challenge they've had before, which is many of these programs, if you're going to have a quality program, they are simply too expensive for individual school districts to create and to maintain. So the partnerships become more important. The purpose of the Craft Training Center and the industry's role in completely supporting the Craft Training Center is to provide first-class industrial facilities that are available for school districts to use. So those are the kinds of partnerships that we want to keep in mind. I am very concerned about overall infrastructure and how individual school districts will be able to put all of these options into effect. Because in smaller school districts, you simply do not have the economies of scale of teachers relative to numbers of students that you see in the larger districts. So I think it's a challenge, but like many other things, I think that we can overcome it. Do know that industry is very interested in this outcome, and local industry was highly involved in the House Bill 5, taking people to Austin, for everyone to understand, which has been a real battle, let me tell you this, that this type of post-secondary education leads to very lucrative and profitable careers. I can't even begin to tell you the frustration that I experienced when we were talking to some of the experts in Austin about what is needed for education. So I can't even imagine how these superintendents feel all the time. But again, echoing what Scott has said, we do have challenges ahead. I think the challenge is in implementation and delivery.
Thank you. Dr. Alvarado, so you heard a suggestion from Dr. Elliff about a role that ESC might play. Do you have a response to that, and what do you see as challenges from your perspective from helping the regional school districts implement House Bill 5? So it's kind of a twofold question, but I'll let you respond to what Scott said as well.
I agree. I think that's a wonderful challenge for us, an opportunity as well, because I think he's right. I think we have to make sure that we're putting the resources together collectively here so that we can actually have the best programming available for our schools and our students out there. I think one of the other challenges is that making sure that we have the stakeholders around the table having the conversations that really matter to all of us. And sometimes what happens is we work in isolation, and therefore we're doing something and someone else is doing something and someone else is doing something, yet if we would have had the opportunity to have the country together, we could have repurposed our resources more effectively, more efficiently. So I agree. I think we have to do a better job of that. And actually, we've had this conversation at the Service Center about asking ourselves who else should be at this table when we're having this conversation, because that's where the power is in having this conversation. I think the other thing is changing the mindset of some of our parents in our community Because what has happened with, and I think Scott alluded to earlier, was that when a child goes home and says, I want to be a plumber, sometimes when they go home, they get discouraged by their parent because their parent thinks they have to go to college to get the recognition that they need and they want. So I think one of the things we've talked about here at the Service Center was, how do we begin, and we've talked to Delmar about this, is how do we have parent forums to educate them about the value of CTE, and not devalue CTE, but the value of CTE. And I think that's a wonderful challenge for us to make that happen, not only in the Corpus Christi area, but going out to the rest of our region to outreach to make sure that we give the opportunity for the parents in those areas to be able to hear the same messaging. So I think that's part of the challenge. I think the other challenge is making sure that we as a service center stay ahead of those things that are happening in Austin and those rules that will impact, and those procedures that will impact school districts, so that we make sure we inform them as soon as we can so that they can make some programmatic decisions based on what the needs are for their districts.
Thank you. Wanted to give an opportunity for members of the audience. We've probably got about 5 minutes or so to see if any of you have questions for the panel, and then we're going to allow Chairman Hunter to come back here and give us a wrap up. Do we have questions or comments? I know, come on, we've been talking about it. Yes. Gene Seaman, former State Rep Gene Seaman is with us today.
May I come up there, Carol?
Sure, I think what we'll do is,
Thank you.
let's see if,
Thank you.
there you go.
Okay.
Debbie, you want to give me a hand with this and she pass it around to other folks?
Right, good. Pardon me. Todd, you're supposed to help me.
You're on your own.
Thanks a lot, Chairman. I do want to make a little speech to y'all. 10 years in the legislature and a businessman in the community. Troy knows that I built some 400 homes in Ingleside and with my partner, and I'm very vested in this community. I'm going to say that I'm going to use first names like Mark and et cetera, and Troy, because at my age I can use first names. Even Rick Barry, I can say, hey Rick. But what I'm going to say is very redundant to this group, but I want to get beyond this group. It's redundant because you know everything that's being said. You're all part of the solution. You're all part of this, every one of you. So it's kind of redundant to talk to ourselves, and I want to talk about a bigger issue. I'm going to come back to, first I'm going to talk about the crisis. The crisis is, I had lunch with Sue Johnson yesterday from Chenier, and Sue Zimmerman in Chenier, and we were talking about symphony business, but she brought up the fact that when they get their remit in a year or so, there's 2,000 people. They're tradesmen. And the Chinese TIPCO, tradesmen, 2,000 more. And we go down the list, and you said 12,000? Friends, dear friends, we have an absolute crisis, an economic trades crisis here. We not only have a crisis in the trades, we will have a crisis for housing, right? Housing. We're going to have an infrastructure, and Todd talked about water. And so we have a major crisis on our hands. It's a wonderful problem to talk about. And Nick, a reason I want to do this, I hope that the caller will give us a write-up so we can get it statewide in AP and get this publicized beyond just this room. Because we are kind of small. There's a lot we can do by interaction, but we really can't solve this problem. This is a statewide, almost a national problem, dear friends, to bring in 12,000 people and solve the housing and solve infrastructure and solve all of these problems. Then I'm going to go to the issue which has been critical in my life. Dr. Alvarado, you and Ann talked about the stigma of trades. Shop. I'm going to shop. I'm going to learn how to make a cabinet or something. And it's not career technology. And this is, Todd knows this. I passed numerous bills in the legislature on career technology. I was known as Mr. Career Tech in the legislature, right, Tom? Well, I passed one, and you know what? It got vetoed. You know why? Because Eagle Forum, a far-right group, said it was a Nazi experiment and it was dumbing down. And they're living with this stigma thing that you're going to chop instead of career technology. And all of you spoke to that issue, every one of you, the four of you. So we have got to get by that crisis of educating the public about the dignity of working with our hands. I remember statistics, Todd, of saying there was a 52% black male and Hispanic male dropout rate in Houston, HISD. And they got a choice of going to jail. Right, Scott, Ellen? Isn't that what you were talking about? And Ann, the dropout problem? Mark? And so these are the crises we're going to face, and it's bigger than us. So Todd, and not a challenge to you, but you know, we need this message to the media. Rick, Mick, I'm sorry. The Caller Times. We need this to the media, to TAD, to NFID, the groups that we know, to the chairman of economic development. I was on the vice chair of economic development, which oversight a workforce commission. And unless we get to Austin and talk to the three chairs of the three commissioners of the workforce commission, we're not going to get the state involved. And we need to be telling Perry and Dewhurst and Strauss and the chair of EcoDevo, and we need to get this statewide. This is not just our crisis, dear friends. This is a statewide crisis. And Texas is the leader in the economy in this nation. Why? Because of the God-blessed things that we've been given, Eagle Ford, and all of the opportunities. But we have to go beyond us. So that's our challenge for all of us, is get out of there. Now you got guys like Paul Cleur, a dear friend of mine, and Merkovich, and different people that are doing all they can do. But it's such a little, minuscule amount in 12,000 tradespeople. So we have to go beyond ourselves.
Well, thank you, Gene, for your comments and for your early leadership in this issue. Thank you very much. Are there other questions? Any other questions for the panel? Well, because everybody agrees with everything that they said. Actually, it's hard to disagree with what you said. We're going to invite the chairman back up for some closing comments.
The great thing about this subject is not only does it hit our region, but let me point out the unity between business and education. I want you to think about this. Here is a topic that business and education come together. Now, I want to point some folks out. In the room, we have Gregory Portland. I have Cal Allen. I have Ingleside. I have Aransas ISD. I have Flower Bluff right here. I have Chenier sitting in this same room.
Orange Grove.
Well, I haven't gotten to Orange Grove yet. He's not on the right road yet. I haven't gotten to Orange Grove. Orange Grove. We also have had in the same room Texas A&M Corpus Christi, Texas A&M Kingsville, Del Mar. Previously, we had University of Texas Marine Science Institute right before we came here today. I have chambers of commerce in here. I have school board members in here. Isn't that interesting that we have a unity on this subject of higher ed, public ed, and business and industry? The real unity is South Texas is coming together, and South Texas is going to deliver the message statewide. And so you heard great from these panelists. You've got a lot of great folks in the audience. But let me tell you what we're going to do. I told you where we're going to go from here. Well, June of 2014, 8 CR 82 was signed into law. This is the extension of career, technology, business, industry, workforce education. So beginning at the start of 2014, ladies and gentlemen, my legislation will have the joint interim to finish, complete, and make those contacts statewide to bring education and industry together for 2014, so we can go into 2015 and create the final laws that we developed. We made the impact with HB 5. It wasn't just HB 5. It was other legislation. So now you have it starting. This is statewide, Senate and House. This resolution, it's called an 8CR, will allow us to develop the workforce education for the next year and a half, go into 15, and the task force that is here today, I'm going to ask that all of you continue, because you went from phase 1, we're now going to phase 2. The one thing I'm glad to do is I'm glad to be able to bring an issue to you, get my community involved, but we don't stop. And you made the comment, you want the rest of the state to know? They're gonna know. As the folks in here see, this landscape is changing. The demands are here. This is pro-education environment. This is pro-business industry environment. And over the next 5 years, the demands are huge. And we are going to succeed. What I want is the success to be here, this coastal Bend region. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you thank you. But as I end, this 8CR will be the continuation and the finalization of the project. And we will be kicking off here at the end of the year, and then the formal committee will begin the beginning of 2014. So, you made it around second base. By 15, we're going to be at home plate. And to help Scott Ella, he'll make sure when we celebrate, everybody has Starbucks. I want to thank Angie, Gay, Jennifer, Dan, and Charlotte, and of course I've got the Dalton gang and the Pruitt gang here. But I want to thank all of you for helping us coordinate this. Carol, Mike, I want you to continue in that role, and I want my task force here, and we will be adding to it, especially because we're going to have some new criteria going forward. Thank you all very, very much for being here today. Thank you.